Hi, I'm Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about one of my recent favorite genres of games, and that is tableau building games, specifically card-driven tableau building games. So building games are games where you're not just playing cards, but you're also, the cards that you play are permanently in your display. So it's not like a deck building game where you're cycling through the cards. Different type of engine building, great engine building and deck building, but different than tableau building. So the cards you play are permanent, and you're using them in a variety of ways throughout the game. And the primary focus is on the cards themselves, at least for this category that I'm making up here for fun. There's two other great videos that I watched kind of in preparation for this video. One is from the Dice Tower, and the other is from Adam in Wales. I'll link to both of them below. The Adam in Wales video in particular is really, really helpful for game designers, I think, because he goes over a bunch of different categories of tableau building games. Among Stonemaier Games products, we have two games that fit this bill to a certain extent. Well, specifically they do. We have other games that have tableau building to them, but not quite as deep and not quite as card focused as Wingspan and Expedition. So here's Wingspan itself. I don't have my Expeditions box handy, but I'm going to talk about Wingspan a little bit later in terms of tableau building, but these two games are in the Stonemaier Games collection as being card-driven tableau building games. Expeditions is my new game, my sequel to Scythe, that involves both playing cards Concordia style, so you're kind of cycling through them. That's not really the tableau building part of it, but also inserting cards under your mech. So you're upgrading your mech with melded meteorites, upgraded items, and solved quests, improving your tableau and your abilities for the rest of the game. But yeah, I'll talk about Wingspan a little bit later. Two other games that came to mind when I was thinking about this list, great tableau building games that don't really use cards, they use tiles instead, so I didn't include them on this list, are Glen and Knarr and Far. Both essentially use cards, but they are tiles, so I didn't make them eligible for this list, but they do tableau building in really interesting ways. Glen and Knarr and Far. Ambassador picks for this, so these are games that more than one ambassador picked when I asked them what their favorite tableau building game is. Multiple people said 51st State, Seven Wonders, Arboretum, Ark Nova, Earth, Everdell, Imperium Classics, Innovation, It's a Wonderful World, Meadow, Race for the Galaxy, Terraforming Mars, Wayfarers of the South Tigris, and Wingspan. My honorable mentions, and on any given day, some of these games probably could make it into the top 10. This was, it's always highly subjective when I make these lists, but these are all games that I really, really do enjoy that feature card-driven tableau building. And they are Res Arcana, Underwater Cities, Seasons, Gizmos, Innovation, Furnace, Deus, London, Caverna, Terraforming Mars, Splendor, Agricola, and Sleeping Gods. The last few in particular, you can tell they're out of alphabetical order because they were very, very close to making the list. Now I'll get to my top 10. I own many of these games, but not all of them. I'll show you the ones that I own. You can always already see a spoiler here over on the corner of the screen. Terraforming Mars Ares Expeditions. I played this one. I've only played it once, but I really did enjoy it, and I would pick it over Terraforming Mars at this point because of the simultaneous nature of the selection. And for this category, and for each of these games, I'm going to highlight a certain element, or maybe more than one element of tableau building that they do really, really well. There definitely is overlap between these games. But I think something that Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition does really well is that when another player does something, that impacts the card or cards that you get to activate in your tableau. So the actions that the action that another player chooses to activate that round, they get kind of the best version of that action, and you get a lesser version of that action, but you get to activate those cards that you already have in your tableau. I really like this idea of having other players, the things that they do, impact the cards that you've decided to play, because it adds to a nice sort of passive player interaction where whenever you choose a certain action in one of these games, you are looking at the other players. Sometimes you're looking at the other players to see what cards of that type they have, to see just in case that it might benefit them so much more than it might benefit you, that you might either assume that they're going to choose that same action, or you might avoid that action as long as possible until you are better benefited by it. So that is Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. Next up is Ora et Labora, a game that I haven't played in far too long for a game that I really, really do love. This is an Uwe Rosenberg game where you are building a village in front of you, and the village does a few different things. One is that the cards that you're building in that village are worker placement spots for you or your opponents. Even your opponents can place tokens in your own village. This was actually a big influence for me when I designed Charterstone. Same thing, you're building your own little charter in Charterstone, but other players can place their workers there and use the actions in your charter. The other element of Ora et Labora that I think is really clever is the spatial element. Adjacency matters in a big way in Ora et Labora, sometimes for actions during the game, more so for endgame abilities, but endgame abilities are a big part of tableau building in these games. Oftentimes they're saying, look at your tableau at the end of the game, and based on certain elements like adjacency in Ora et Labora, score X number of points. So I really like the decision space in Ora et Labora in terms of whenever you are ready to play a card, exactly where you're going to play it really matters in that game. As number 9, Ora et Labora. At number 8, we have Role Player Adventures. I do own this game. I didn't feel like lugging the box and putting it on my pile. It's a very big box. I'm really looking forward to the expansion. And in Role Player Adventures, you are accumulating a giant tableau of cards over the course of the campaign that you're activating when you use skill test or when you're attempting skill test in the game. Oftentimes, many of the cards either add dice or they manipulate dice. They change like a purple die to a red die, or they change a certain number to another number. And the element I wanted to feature here in particular, because I'll talk about some of these other categories later, is cooperation. I think this is the only cooperative game on this list. And cooperation is pretty crucial in role-player adventures. Even though my tableau is mine and yours is yours, we are constantly looking at each other's tableaus to try to solve the problem of the skill test at hand. And I think that's a really unique take on tableau building, adding that cooperative element where the other player's tableaus matter in a huge way. And it also matters that the cards in my tableau are mine. They trigger off each other. They may not necessarily help my other crewmates, my other friends, as we're trying to accomplish those skill tests. So that's role player adventures at number 8. Number 7, finally, I have the game that you can see out of the corner of your eye, and that is Dog Park. In Dog Park, you are collecting dogs and adding them to your tableau, and they activate at different times. Some of them activate right about when you assign a dog to go on a walk. Some are endgame activations, and some are activate while you're going on the walk itself. And for that is the key to Dog Park that's a little bit different in that whenever you go on a walk, you can only select up to 3 dogs to go on the walk with you. So even though you have this tableau of cards, there's a selective element to the activation. You can only select 3 of the cards, 3 of the dogs, to actually go on the walk with you, and those are the only 3 that activate. And so I think that adds a nice little twist to it. It means that you're kind of building an engine, and then you're activating a part of that engine every round. And that choice is really interesting in the game. Which part of the engine do I want to activate right now? Which of these cards, which of these dogs combo together for what I need right now? And they also have endgame abilities. A lot of these games have endgame triggers, endgame benefits. A lot of these in Dog Park are about collecting a certain resource type and having extras of that resource. Maybe a certain dog likes dog toys, and so if that dog has a bunch of toys by the end of the game, you get some extra points for it. So that is Dog Park at number 7 on this list. And number 6 is Everdell. Really beautiful tableau building game. In fact, the back of the box, I should show you the back of the box for Dog Park too. This shows the tableau, this again, a little village that you're building with various characters and buildings in Everdell. And one of my favorite things that Everdell does is that when you play certain cards, those cards let you play other cards for free, and other specific cards combined thematically. Like if you play, hopefully I'll get this right in the order I'm saying it, but if you play like the cleric, I think there's a cleric-like card, then you can play the church for free. It might be the reverse of that. It might be the church comes first and the cleric, or whatever it's called in this game. But the different characters in the game are tied to the buildings, and that when you play one, you can then play the other one for free. And that's really satisfying in this game when resources are fairly tight, that you get to actually play a building completely for free, or a card for free, whichever way it is. So I really like that element of tableau building in Everdell. You're playing one thing off another, and kind of building this ongoing stream of actions, ideally, to make your round last a little bit longer, based on everything that you have in your tableau. Everdell also uses cards for income. There's some endgame scoring. It kind of hits a lot of the different things that I'm talking about today in terms of tableau building. So that's Everdell at number 6. And number 5 is a game that I debated put on this list a little bit. I love the game, but I wasn't quite sure if it fits. But that's Space Base. I have Space Base at number 5 on this list. And I put it on here because you are building a giant tableau of cards. And similar to a little similar to Dog Park, you only have one active card for each number throughout the game. So if the cards are number 1 through 12, you only have one primary card that's fully active. When I play another card on, say, the 7 slot, the card that I had there is flipped over and put at the top of my map. And what that does is instead of activating, whenever another player rolls dice, the dice, if they add up to 7, I can activate that card that I've then flipped over, and those benefits stack. So if I've already put 3 cards in the 7 slot of the mat of your play mat in space base, then I have 3 cards that are going to activate whenever any other player rolls a 7. And that's the activation in this game. That's kind of the twist in space base, the dice activation, that you're not choosing which cards you want to activate in your tableau for the most part. You are using the dice that were rolled that turn, whether they were rolled by an opponent or by yourself, to activate either 2 different cards. So like for a 7, it would be activate the 3 and the 4, or the sum of the dice, the number 7 slot. You're activating that slot. So this dice activation element also plays into Role Player Adventures, and one other game that I'll mention in a few seconds on this list. That's Space Base at number 5. At number 4, I've combined 2 games, even though they are very different games, or different games, not completely different games, but Seven Wonders Duel and Seven Wonders are both brilliant tableau building games. And they really lean into the aspect of ongoing resources and cost decreases. Because as you play cards into Seven Wonders Duel and Seven Wonders, as you play resource cards and I forget the other category of cards, but the gray cards, the brown cards in the game, they offer you resources that you just have from then on. So whenever you want to play a card, if you've played like 2 brick cards, whenever you want to play a card that costs 2 brick, you have those resources. You don't have to spend them. You just have them. You're actively producing them on an ongoing basis. You can play that card that costs 2 brick. So this ongoing resource cost decrease element is really, really great in Seven Wonders and Seven Wonders Duel. A lot of the cards do play into endgame scoring, of course, and some of them also give you kind of trade benefits where you can, it goes down to resource conversion in a way where if you can spend less to get resources that your neighbors have. But for the most part, I really love the ongoing resources and cost decreases provided by Seven Wonders Duel and Seven Wonders as well. So that's Seven Wonders Duel at number 4. Number 3, Fantastic Factories. This is an excellent tableau building game. Again, using dice as to activate the different cards in your tableau. Cards look like this. So you're basically building a factory where you're triggering one card with dice and then triggering another card. Sometimes you're able to activate your entire tableau. You're not always able to do that, but it feels really good when you're able to kind of like use one card to manipulate a die, so you can use another die for another card, and then that card might produce a die, and then you can use that for another card. That die might produce some resources, so you can play another card in your tableau, and then you can use that card right away. Just one thing after another in Fantastic Factories that feels really good. It leans heavily into resource conversion and dice conversion, similar to Role Player Adventures. And it also features some cards with when played benefits. That's a category I haven't mentioned yet, but a number of tableau building games have cards that say, when you play this card, gain this benefit right away. So that is Fantastic Factories at number 3. Now, as I get to my top 2 here, I do want to come back to Wingspan for a second. Wingspan is a game that I was heavily involved in creating. The designer Elizabeth Hargrave worked with me closely on creating this game, and it is a game that we published at Stonemaier Games. So I didn't want to make it eligible for this list, even though it absolutely would be among the top 3 favorite tableau building games of mine. Some of the things I love about Wingspan for the tableau building, it kind of hits a lot of these different things. It has endgame scoring if you have the Oceania expansion. It has end of round scoring, which feels a bit like income, but there are cards in your tableau that have end of round, not scoring, end of round benefits. There are when played benefits. There are benefits that activate when one of your opponents does something, and there are ongoing if activated benefits. And this is the thing that I think Wingspan does that's really, really special. Turn this over here. If you look at the player mats, when you play a card onto your player mat, regardless of the ability on the card, you are improving your ability to take that type of action. So if you play a card in the wetlands row, you are permanently improving your ability to draw cards and gain new cards. And then many of the cards also have those end of game, end of round, or when activated abilities. And so whenever you choose to take the gain cards action, you are not only gaining more cards because you have bird cards in that row, but you're also activating all the bird cards in that row and gaining their benefits. Elizabeth has done a number of brilliant things with the card designs in Wingspan. The 300 plus, I think, birds that she's designed at this point are in the game that offer a wide variety of versions of these abilities. But those are the core tableau building elements of Wingspan that I love. It feels so satisfying to play Wingspan. It feels a little different every time. Also, one thing I think Wingspan does really well that Tableau games have to keep in mind is if you have Wingspan makes it easy to remember what you get to activate at any given time. Because one of the things that can happen in a tableau building game is that it might if you have a ton of cards out, and you have to remember that, like, when this thing happens, I get these benefits. It can be hard to remember that. You can easily forget some of those benefits. And Wingspan just makes it easy to remember, like, when you choose the gain food or gain cards or gain food action, these are the benefits that you gain as a result, because they're right there in the row as you're taking the action. My number 2 right now is Earth. Earth is a very new game to me, but I am really, really enjoying Earth for the simultaneous play, for the satisfaction of building your tableau. My recent play, I was able to complete my 4x4 tableau of cards. Here's what some of the tableaus look like in Earth. You're building, over the course of the game, you're building essentially this island, this little ecosystem of soil and plants and trees. And I think one of the really cool things that Earth does is not only are you playing the cards and adding them to your tableau and getting endgame benefits and adjacency benefits and resource conversion benefits, not only that, but you're also putting tokens on the cards as you play, as you activate these benefits. So whenever I can put sprout tokens on the cards, I can put these tree tokens on the cards, these growth tokens. And so your tableau is becoming 3D as you play, basically, with all these different tokens on them. That makes it really feel like it's coming to life. I really love that element of Earth. The other element of Earth that's a little bit like Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition that I really like is that whenever a player chooses one of the 4 actions, not only do all players get a lesser version of that action, but they also get to activate all cards in their tableau from top left to bottom right of that color, of a specific color in that tableau. So that feels really, really good to activate all cards of a certain color on every turn, not just your turn, but when any player selects that color action. So yeah, Earth is my number 2 favorite tableau building game, card-driven tableau building game right now. Number 1, though, didn't quite knock the king off the throne, and that is Ark Nova. Ark Nova is a tableau building game with no spatial element, actually. This one doesn't have a spatial element, unlike some of those other cards that I mentioned. But you are building a tableau of a few different types of cards. Sponsor cards, conservation cards, and I think I'm saying that right, and kind of animal creature cards. A lot of the cards that you play are animals in Ark Nova because you are building a zoo. And these cards kind of hit a lot of the best of elements of tableau building. They're endgame benefits, they're when played benefits, they're end of round income style benefits that feel really good in this game. I think the income in Ark Nova is done really, really well, especially since you don't know exactly when the round will end. So there's always this little bit of tension of, will I get one more turn to play this card that gives me more income going into the next round? There's also one thing that Ark Nova does that I don't think many of the other games on this list do. Seven Wonders does this, is that it has like some gatekeeping in it. It's some gateway requirements. So cards might say, to play this card, you must already have one monkey card in play. And so you already have to have a monkey card in play to play this card that's probably worth more points. And so as soon as you've played a monkey card, you can get around that. Also, cards have little tags based on the regions. A number of cards might say, if you have to already have like 2 cards of this region in play. And so by playing cards, you are unlocking the doors, the gates to playing other cards in the game. Also, Ark Nova, the last tableau building element that I haven't mentioned yet is increasing storage. So increasing the amount of storage capacity that you have. Sometimes that means playing on the cards themselves. What Ark Nova does with that, though, is it's increasing, many cards that you play increase the size of your zoo. So you can play more animals into your zoo. You need space in your zoo to play the animals. So I think Ark Nova does that really well, too. Also, there are ongoing abilities. Ark Nova has some cards that have ongoing abilities as well that you can pay attention to. So Ark Nova does a lot of different things with the cards. It hits many of these elements of tableau building games that I've talked about today. And yeah, it is my number 1 favorite card-driven tableau building game as of right now. That's my list. I'd love to hear what your list looks like. Maybe your top 3 card-driven tableau building games. What are some big games that I've missed here, or games that I mentioned in the honorable mentions or ambassadors list that would be higher up on the list for you? And if I missed any mechanisms that tableau building games do, please let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to add it to the list. Also, thanks again to the Dice Tower for their video about this and to Adam and Wales for their video on the topic. Thanks.